Good evening. If you would state your name and address, please.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Rachel Holland. I'm actually a resident of Clark County, Georgia. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I am a historian and a reenactor. As a historian, I research and present history from both sides of the war between the states as documented in primary resources including journals, military and civilian records, manuals, and hospital records. I do not take this responsibility lightly. It is vitally important to correctly present the history of both sides and all races, otherwise we do them all a disservice. Most are not aware that whites and both black, slaves and freemen, Jews, Native Americans, and Europeans all fought for the Confederacy and were not segregated based on race. Based on these records, less than 6% of Southerners owned slaves, and the rest did not. The most notorious and cruel of slave owners in the South was this man, William Ellison. And as you can see from his photos, he is a black man. He owned more black slaves than any of the whites in his area. Another man, also who was black, petitioned the courts for the right to own slaves of his own race. The majority of the men and boys in the Confederacy were not fighting for slavery, but for freedom, for the way the Founding Fathers established our country, for equal representation without taxation, or for the fact that their homes were invaded by the Union Army. This battle flag led men into battle. It did not fly as a sign of government or of slavery. It allows a regiment to align properly and move as a unit, or for men to find their company in the smoke and confusion of battle. It was never a sign of slavery. But let's say for a moment that it was. It flew for only 4 years. What about the federal flag? It has flown in many forms for 250 years, including over slave ships, importing and purchasing slaves from Africa, Ireland, and other countries. It has made and broken treaties with Native Americans, and war crimes have been committed under its watch. If we want to ban a flag based on slavery, it should not be the Confederate flag or flags of the Confederacy. People say that Confederate flags belong in a museum, but according to Ms. Clemens' statements, it must be removed entirely, even from within a museum, and that is not acceptable. Nash Farm Battlefield was the location of a major cavalry battle, as you have heard, but you may not be aware that black men fought on that soil within the Confederate ranks. Holt Collier was just one. He fought with the 9th Texas Cavalry and survived both the battle at Nash Farm and the war. You can see in the picture on the right, he is here with Teddy Roosevelt and was honored as a good scout. Here is a picture of his gravestone. And if you can see, he was honorably buried as a Confederate. To erase the history of Nash Farm Battlefield is to erase the memory of these brave black soldiers. It is to dishonor their fight and their service. It is to dishonor the history of the race of several of the members of this board. I fight to remember and honor these men. I come from a long line of military veterans all the way back to the American Revolution, and I have multiple ethnicities flowing through my own veins. According to the Act of Congress, which is U.S. Public Law 85-425, Section 410, approved 23 May 1958, all Confederate soldiers, sailors, and Marines who fought in the Civil War were made United States veterans and were given the same honor and respect as any U.S. veteran. Those flags have a right to be flown as a memorial to United States veterans, if not for the history itself. I want to honor every soldier who fought and served under it. It seems that people were not offended at the flags until they were told to be. Many reenactments, weddings, and other special events have been held at Nash Farm over the years. People chose to have their event at that location, even with the flags flying. Many people go off without knowing history or about the black troops, only knowing their own offense or their own prejudice and hatred. History is messy, varied, and never as spotless or nice as we would wish. We need to tell the whole story and let people draw their own conclusions. Where does it stop? If we remove these flags, the monuments, the location and memory of these battlefields where brave men of many races fought and died, what is to stop the removal of monuments and statues of Dr. King, Rosa Parks, or Harriet Tubman? Their stories also took place in a messy time of history. What is to stop someone from getting offended at them and demanding their removal? To take a lesson from the founding fathers of this nation, if we do not stand up for the liberties and history of all, then we cannot expect someone to stand up and protect ours. I encourage this board to carefully consider these facts and instead choose to memorialize these brave men and women and preserve the memory of those who fought for their homes and the cause in which they believed, no matter their race. Thank you.
Thank you.